At the beginning of this year, I released a video covering Dead South, a 3-chapter custom campaign that has a very high level of polish and a very engaging story. Well, in May of this year, the official sequel to Dead South has been released, and it's one of the best custom campaigns to come out this year. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another custom campaign breakdown. This time, we are going to be tackling a highly requested custom map, Amid the Ruins. This custom campaign is fantastic, and checks almost every single box in terms of quality. Amid the Ruins is a very grounded custom map set in South Carolina, and the survivors are fighting the infected hordes through overrun trailer parks, abandoned towns, and desolate countrysides. The environmental storytelling is top of the line, and there are a ton of hints and subtle details scattered throughout the campaign. Evacuation notices, highway signs, and wall graffiti are just a few methods of storytelling used in this campaign, and it helps drastically with the overall quality. On the gameplay side, this campaign is also surprisingly hard, especially in the early chapters, with multiple crescendo events that put a halt to most expert runs. There is a lot to discuss here, so, without wasting any more time, let's break down the story behind Amid the Ruins. The campaign starts out with the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors on a dock. The sternwheeler from Dead South can be seen destroyed in the background, and the official description for the campaign reads as follows. After spending the night sailing down the Savannah River, the survivors wake up to the captain turning into an infected, causing the boat to crash in Jasper County. With no immediate goal, the survivors must venture forward into the unknown. So, now we have a better idea of where we are, and we're going to get way more hints on our exact location in very short time, but for now, we have an official setting. The survivors are in Jasper County, South Carolina. Now, let's discuss Chapter 1 in more detail. The survivors see a trailer park beyond the broken fence, and right before entering, you can find this piece of wall graffiti. Cul-de-sac raider territory. Keep out. The survivors then enter the trailer park and discover that it's overrun with zombies. On the left-hand side, you can find this trailer. White cloth can be seen on the ground, and boxes are covered in a sheet. From the looks of it, someone was in the process of moving into this trailer right before the infection hit. If you head inside the bathroom, you can also find 3 dead bodies. Outside of another trailer, you can find a CETA evacuation notice telling survivors to head to the Bridgepoint Church. While walking through the trailer park, you can also find this piece of wall graffiti. Don't mess with the cul-de-sac raiders. If you look beside this trailer, you can find a doghouse, but when you walk over, instead of a dog, it's Fred the Gator, calmly sitting inside of the doghouse. Try and keep this little guy in mind because he will be making multiple appearances in this campaign. Near the end of the trailer park, the survivors find this. A trailer has been burnt to the ground, and if you take a closer look, you can see smoke being emitted from the trailer, a clear sign that it was burned down very recently. Near the end of the trailer park, the survivors also find this. A trailer with a red cross, and if you head inside, you find medical beds and healing supplies. Dead across from this trailer is a shooting range with bottles and paper targets. Inside of one of the trailers, you can find this piece of wall graffiti. Houses burned, 1. Houses looted, 6. Zeds killed, 12. Morons killed, 8. Long live the cul-de-sac raiders. The cul-de-sac raiders are not exactly the most benevolent group of individuals. They burned and looted trailers, and based on this piece of wall graffiti, they also killed healthy survivors. The trailer park is completely overrun with zombies, so the cul-de-sac raiders are either dead or driven out of the trailer park. When you exit this trailer, you can find multiple dead bodies along the fence, and a dead tank can be seen just a few feet away. The survivors then exit the trailer park and cut through a warehouse. When you exit, you can see a massive traffic jam, and after a short walk, the survivors find an alarm door. The ending of Chapter 1 is a gauntlet that is pretty hard. The warehouse is full of narrow hallways and confined spaces, so be mindful of any spitter puddles or ambush attacks. When you reach the end of the warehouse, the survivors disable the alarm and find their next safe room. However, before we move on to Chapter 2, there is an Easter egg that we need to discuss first. Throughout Chapter 1, you can find these hidden plushies of Fred the Gator. There are 5 hidden throughout Chapter 1, and if you interact with all of them, a secret can be found at the end of the chapter. So let's go over all of these plushies and their exact locations. The first plushie can be found in the opening seconds of Chapter 1. If you walk to the left of the dock, you can find the first plushie next to the sign. The second plushie can be found in the doghouse that I mentioned earlier. The third plushie can be found in this far corner next to a cargo crate. The fourth plushie can be found right before you reach the alarm door. Follow this wall, and Fred can be found hidden in this corner. The final plushie can be found after you turn off the alarm. Hidden inside of a sewer grate, you can find the final plushie. When you reach the end of the chapter, this outhouse is now unlocked, and when you head inside, you find Fred the Gator and an AK-47. Now, with that Easter egg out of the way, let's discuss the wall graffiti found in the safe room. Washington is gone. They blew up Talmadge Bridge. All roads lead to Harrison. CETA evacs at Harrison. Final evac October 27th. Barricaded the bathroom for your safety. Air freshener doesn't work. Death to the cul-de-sac raiders. Inside of this safe room, you can find this wooden door. If you deal enough damage to the door, it will eventually break, and inside, you can find a destroyed toilet and a bathtub that is filled to the brim with what looks like human shit. On the wall, you can find this piece of wall graffiti. Diarrhea. People think it's funny, but it's just real brown and runny. Mackenzie knows his shit. On the right of the bathroom, you can also find this CETA evacuation notice. This is very similar to the evacuation notice found in Crash Course, but instead of Whitney County, it's Jasper County, Harrison. The 4 locations listed are Baker's Manufacturers, Bridgepoint Church, Philip Harrison High School, and the Jasper County Courthouse. If you type Harrison, South Carolina into Google Maps, you will not get any results, and that's because Harrison is a fictional city. The official Left 4 Dead campaigns did this as well. Hard Rain, The Sacrifice, and The Passing are just a few examples of a Left 4 Dead campaign taking place in a fictional city, and this custom map seems to be doing something similar. However, by looking at the layout of this map, we can actually get a much more precise idea of our exact location. Here's an enhanced image of the CETA evacuation notice, and here's a Google Maps image of Hartville, South Carolina. The layout is an almost perfect match, and on the bottom right of both maps, you can clearly see the Jasper Highway. So, now we have a much better idea of where we are. The survivors are fighting the infected through the town of Harrison, which serves as a fictional stand-in for the real town of Hartville, South Carolina. Everybody got that? Good. Now let's move on to Chapter 2. The survivors decide to cut through the Ridgeland farms. During the walk, the survivors cut through a barn. A safe room door can be seen near the entrance, and if you walk to the left-hand side, you can find this side room with a trap door. When you open up the door and head inside, you find a pile of mutilated bodies. Water jugs and supplies can be found in the corner of this room. These survivors were hiding out underneath the barn, but they were sadly killed by the infected. The survivors continue forward and eventually reach a main road. If you look over this barricade, you can see a wildlife crossing sign. At the bottom of the sign, you can see an outline of Fred the Gator, who makes another cameo appearance. After this, the survivors cut through a building and reach a small town. There is a lot of stuff in this area, so without wasting any more time, let's break it all down. If you walk to the end of the street, you find the Bridgepoint Church. You can also find the sign outside of the church, and it reads as follows: "Forgive your enemies. It messes with their heads." Right before you reach the church, you can head inside of this pawn shop. Behind the desk is a locked door. However, you can partially break it, and when you do, you find a dead body surrounded by empty milk cartons. On the wall behind the body is this piece of wall graffiti: "Scared of nothing, and I'm scared to death. The Milkman." This seems to be a reference to the Luke Combs song, "No Love in Oklahoma." Right next to the gate, you can find this radio, and when you interact with it, you can hear the following.
This message is for all Harrison residents and CETA evacuation sites. A severe thunderstorm warning has been issued in the following counties: Hampton, Jasper, Chatham, Bryan, Bullock, Scriven, Beaufort, and Effingham. All CETA evacuation sites will be closed at 2 p.m. EST October 27th. This message will repeat in 15 minutes.
The survivors then push a button to open the gate. A horde is summoned at the same time, so the survivors have to hold off the infected hordes and then make a dash for the safe room. This is another difficult crescendo event. The street does give you some space, but the infected can come from basically every direction. Be mindful of any surprise attacks and you should be okay. Before we head over to Chapter 3, there are a few Easter eggs that we need to discuss first. If you head to the right side of the street, you can find these boarded up windows, and if you take your current weapon, you can break this window on the far side, and when you jump in, you find this room. A dead body and a gnome can be seen on the ground. On the wall, you can find a poster advertising a gnome party. This made an appearance in the Dead South campaign as well. If you grab this gnome and take him to the next chapter, you can unlock a secret area, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. For now, we have one more Easter egg to discuss. Right before you reach the safe room, if you walk to the left of the gun store, you can find this gate. If you interact with this gate enough times, it will eventually open, and when you walk into this alleyway, you can hear the following.
Hey Francis, wasn't this the alley you were born in?
Yeah, ha ha ha. This is the one you're gonna die in.
Now with that fun Easter egg out of the way, let's break down the wall graffiti found at the end of Chapter 2. God save the USA. I miss Burger Tank. Where did the green flu come from? I heard it was from an iceberg in Canada. Blame Canada. Clearly it was made in a lab. On the wall, you can find another CETA evacuation notice. This time the location is the Mayport Inn. Now let's head over to Chapter 3. When you exit the safe room, you can find 2 covered bodies on the left-hand side. If you look up the alleyway, you can see a white van. When you walk towards it, you can see a blood splatter on the wall. And when you turn the corner, you find the dead body of Lewis. That interaction from the prior chapter ended in a brutal murder, all because Francis got his feelings hurt. Now with that fun Easter egg out of the way, let's move on. The survivors cut through a store, and on the right-hand side, you can see a shelf full of Fred the Gator plushies. The survivors then exit the store and see a helicopter flying overhead. There is a lot to break down in this area, so let's get started. If you look dead ahead, you can see a store called Dead Southern Fashion, which is a direct reference to the Dead South custom campaign. If you look on the left-hand side of the street, you can find a barricaded door. Remember that gnome party advertised in the previous chapter? Well, this is a location seen in the poster. If you bring the gnome to this location and bring it to the second floor, a door will open, and when you head inside, you find a room full of dead bodies and gnomes. When you place the gnome on the table, the door then opens, and inside, you find 4 M60s and laser sights. The survivors then cut through an electronics store. Near the back of the store is a microphone that actually works, and will amplify the voice of the character you're playing. The survivors then cut through a restaurant and make it to an open road. If you look on the right-hand side of the street, you can see a store named Dollars to Donuts, which is a direct reference to this voice line from Coach.
Dollars to Donuts. That chopper's heading to the mall across town.
Also, the design of this donut is very similar to the donut commonly seen in the Simpsons TV show. On the left-hand side of the street, the survivors find 2 houses. On the front lawn of one of the houses, you can find a lemonade stand. The survivors then cut through one of the houses, and when you reach the backyard, you find a banner that says, "Happy Birthday, Allison." If you head into the shed, you find a pile of wrapped birthday presents. This kid was having a birthday party when the infection hit. A very tragic scene with that context in mind. Shortly after, the survivors cut through a junkyard. If you head over to this side room, you find a small office full of Fred the Gator plushies. On the second floor of the same building, you can find a broken steam pipe along with this piece of wall graffiti. Watch out for that goddamn steam pipe. I hate steam. This is a reference to a voice line from Francis.
Hey, watch out for that goddamn steam pipe. I hate steam pipes.
The survivors then push past the junkyard and eventually reach a main road. On the side of the road, you can find a street sign with the number 17. And when you head up the road, you can find a billboard advertising the Mayport Inn, which will come into play later. If you head to the end of the road, you find 2 more street signs. One of them is displaying the cities of Switzerland and Ridgeland, and the other is displaying the cities of Harrison, Limehouse, and Savannah. Shortly after, the survivors cut through a gas station called Shell Point Oil Service. If you look behind the desk, you can see a full map of Jasper County and the surrounding area. If you look at the bottom of the map, you can see the town of Harrison and the Route 17 we were on just a few moments ago. The survivors walk behind the gas station and find another store called Lake Marrier Live Bait and Tackle. Dead across from the store, you can find another sign that says Grant Jackson Motors. If you head inside of the bait shop, you can find these photos. The bait shop, gas station, and motor shop were all owned by an elderly couple named Grant and Sharon Jackson. They seem like a lovely couple, so let's hope they're safe and sound. The survivors then call over a ferry and have to hold off the infected hordes. This is a pretty good crescendo event to end the chapter. Just be mindful of the lake directly behind you. As you can probably guess, the water will instantly kill you if you jump in, so watch out for chargers. The survivors then board the ferry and head over to chapter 4. Inside of the safe room, we have even more wall graffiti. Get to Slocomb, last safe haven in the south. No salvation. Who else is seeing those creepy alligators around? His name is Fred. Almighty, powerful Fred. At least they're not gnomes. Ceda's blowing every bridge on the Savannah River. Get out. Rest in peace, Sharon Jackson. Nature's first green is gold. Her heart is hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Grant. This is a real poem that is written and published by Robert Frost all the way back in 1923. Also pay attention to the names. Grant and Sharon. The elderly couple who owned the gas station were here on this ferry, and based on this piece of wall graffiti, Sharon sadly passed away. Grant's fate is currently unknown. Let's just hope he's alive and well. Now let's head over to chapter 4. When you leave the safe room, you'll notice that the bright, warm sky has been replaced by a dark, gloomy storm cloud. That radio broadcast from the prior chapter did warn of a coming storm, and that storm has arrived in full swing. The survivors eventually reach the street, and on the left-hand side, you can find a sign that reads as follows. Notice. Thank you for noticing this notice. The survivors then cut through a building, and near the entrance you can find this sign. Gator Enterprises. Gator done. The survivors then enter the back of the building, and when you head into this office, you can find this piece of paper on the wall. Dear Jason, do not push this button. The lights are very unstable. Also, the fridge is broken. Your boss, Hector. Here's a fun Easter egg. If you're playing as either Ellis or Rochelle, you can actually press this button. And as you can probably guess, the lights will break, and the survivors will say this in response.
Ellis, what did you just do?
I didn't touch nothing.
Now with that fun Easter egg out of the way, let's move on. After a very short walk, the survivors arrive at the Mayport Inn. A giant hole can be seen on the side of the building, and dead bodies can be found everywhere. This is yet another evacuation site that was overrun by the infected. When you enter the building and head up to the second floor, you can find a dead tank in a hallway, and if you head into this side room, you can find a usable radio, and if you interact with it, the song Mountains at Midnight by Royal Blood will begin playing. If you head into this room on the third floor, you can see a raging fire and that massive hole in the wall I showed earlier. On the wall, you can find this piece of wall graffiti. Christine, I'm heading to the power plant to find a boat. Meet me there at 9 p.m. P.S. Don't make pipe bombs. Based on the massive hole in the wall and the raging fire, it's safe to assume that Christine did not take this person's advice. The survivors then head down an elevator and eventually exit the Mayport Inn. When you reach the front of the building, you can see a helicopter flying overhead. You can also find CETA trailers and a massive lineup of CETA body bags. If you walk through this gate, you can find a makeshift gravesite. 3 dead bodies can be seen, and 2 of them have crosses placed behind them. The third body does have its own cross, but it was sadly broken. Either the storm broke it or it was trampled by the infected. Regardless of the reason, this is a tragic scene, and it's one of the best bits of environmental storytelling found in this campaign. Shortly after, the survivors arrive at a power station and enter through a hole in the wall. After climbing up some stairs, if you head to your right, you can see Fred the Gator at the end of the hallway. The survivors then find their next safe room and head over to Chapter 5. Inside, we have even more wall graffiti to break down. To anyone who's seen a helicopter fly by, use the smokestacks. Do something I couldn't. Thanks, SRM Electric. No hope? Go home. Gotta be someplace that held out. Slocomb. Duh. Nowhere safe this side of the river. Maybe Agartha? 1 bullet is all it takes. There's nothing here. Turn back. I think my friend Chris turned into a tank. Saw him punch a boulder like it was nothing. Did he break the wall too? Once more into the breach. This piece of graffiti is a direct reference to Chris Redfield's legendary boulder punch scene from Resident Evil 5. Inside of the safe room, you can find this wooden door. If you take your current weapon and hit it enough times, it will eventually break. And when it does, this will happen.
Away with you, vile beggar! Your postulation is likely the vomited verbose byproduct derived of some pretentious tabloid trough filled with a speculative preconception of a blind parrot whose inept writings have inexplicably passed through the bowels of some prostitute delinquent. Only to be squirted out of our media's over-bloated rectum of basest inquisitive digression and negligent standards, whereby then it sits to congeal and fester in the mouths of the dim-witted plebeian public, who, being more interested in celebrated fecal matter than true academia, will tend to adulate the simplest of concocted magniloquent garbage and regurgitate it with some ill-conceived notion of smug satisfaction at the prospect of lording their views over their inherited betters, while brazenly shouting, "My excreta is better than thine. Let me wipe it on your visage." So thank you not to wipe your filthy, conceited simpleton's conjecture all over my circumstantiated explication. I bid you good day, peasant.
Even for us, that was just too weird.
Now with that fun Easter egg out of the way, let's discuss the finale. The survivors head deeper into the power plant and eventually find a control room. The survivors need to grab gas cans and fill up the generator so they can power the smokestacks. This finale is quite difficult. The area you're in has 3 levels, and it's not very large, so getting pinched by a swarm of infected is very common, and something you have to watch out for. You can split up with your team to make things go faster, and just like the finale of Dead Center, it's easy to maintain line of sight on your allies. Team play and communication can make this finale go by very swiftly, but by yourself, it poses a significant challenge. Before we talk about the ending of this campaign, there's another Easter egg that we need to discuss first. If you head into this room and walk up these stairs, you can find this electrical box on the wall. If you position yourself just right, you can jump on top of this box and onto a nearby pipe. After doing some parkour, you eventually reach this vent, and after heading inside, you find Fred the Gator sitting on a chair. Directly in front of Fred is a computer, and if you take a closer look at the screen, you can find the YouTube page of Andre NG, a Left 4 Dead content creator who's been making videos for over 10 years now. He mainly covers Left 4 Dead custom maps and covers all their secrets and Easter eggs, and these videos are very helpful and informative. If you haven't done it already, you should head over and subscribe to him. If you like my videos, odds are you'll like his too. Now, let's continue discussing the finale. After powering the generator, the survivors turn on the smokestacks to signal the helicopter. The nearby doors will then open, and the survivors have to make a dash to safety. The helicopter is not far, it's right around the corner. However, during the trip, a tank will cut you off in a nearby alleyway. This finale is already hard, and this really cranks up the difficulty. You can try and run past the tank and make a dash for the helicopter, but this strategy obviously comes with massive risk. Your best bet is to kill the tank on the spot, which is a bit difficult but also your safest bet. Bringing a Molotov would certainly make things easier, but this finale is still a brutal challenge, especially on higher difficulties. After reaching the helicopter, the survivors climb aboard and fly away to safety, and that concludes the story behind Amid the Ruins. This is a fantastic custom map that has a very high level of polish and execution. The levels are well designed and cohesive, the environmental storytelling was very well done, and the campaign has a ton of fun Easter eggs. Dead South was a great custom campaign, and Amid the Ruins is a near-perfect sequel that has almost no major flaws. Overall, this is an excellent custom map that is definitely worth a playthrough. So, if I did miss anything, or if you guys have anything to add, be sure to let me know down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.